Should a film ever rely on a sequel to be considered good? This is a question that I had after I watched Insidious Chapter 2. When I reviewed the first Insidious a couple of days ago, I said in that one that I was going to continue with the series, but I wasn't really that excited about it. Having now watched Chapter 2, I can say two things. One, I'm actually really looking forward to the next one. I'm finally in the mood to kind of storm through them, and I'm really looking forward to chapter 3. And two, I actually think the first film will now be better if I ever watch it again because of things that I know from this second film. And that did raise the question in my mind of should that ever be the case? Should you ever rely on a sequel to enhance the viewing experience of the film that came before it? I don't necessarily have an answer for that, but I feel like a film should be as good as it can be on its own. But then at the same time, if a sequel improves it, is that really a bad thing? If you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to let me know. But there won't be any spoilers for this film. There might be spoilers for things that happen in the first film. Insidious Chapter 2 was released in 2013, directed by James Wan, and stars Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne as Josh and Renai Lambert. And this basically picks up where the last film left off, and I don't want to say too much about that because I don't want to spoil the first film as much as possible, just in case for some reason you haven't seen it and want to know what I think of Chapter 2. I don't know, but I try to not give spoilers. But to try and discuss this in a roundabout way, the spirits in the home have not disappeared. In fact, they're closer to home than one might think, and they're affecting the behaviour of one of the characters, and it seems like that character is really putting their family in danger. And there are some beautiful scenes where we see the scenes of the spirits fighting, and basically just any of the scenes set in the further. We also see them being played out in the real world and seeing how those how the actions affect things in our present day. And I think that was very effectively done. I'm not the biggest fan of the further in the first film. I just there were bits of it that were good, but I didn't completely love it. But I feel like it had a much more interesting role to play in this film. But I don't want to say too much about what's discovered in there or which characters are in there. But I will say that I feel like it worked so much better to have the parallels in this film compared to the first film. So if you've seen the first film, and that is something like me that you thought, although interesting, was maybe not done as well as it could have been, it's definitely improved in this second film. I feel like a lot of the characters are a lot more interesting in this film, and that's both characters who I didn't mind in the first film and characters who I felt were maybe a little bit underdeveloped in the first film. But it's also very unclear what exactly is going on in a way that's quite suspenseful. And this one I feel is a much better, richer, more well-developed narrative. And obviously, in theory, it's the same narrative as the first film because it does follow on. There are strong connections. We learn a lot more about what's actually going on. But I do just feel like I feel like it enhances the first film. I feel like where there were plot holes in the first film and gaps in the narrative, this film kind of plugs those gaps. And on the one hand, I guess I really liked this because it satisfied that need that I had for that information from the first film. But again, should that first film have relied on this sequel to plug those gaps? I have no answer. I genuinely don't know what I think or how I feel about that. But the narrative is very well written. It's very, very intricate. There were a couple of times when I thought the threads were a little bit loose. But generally it seems to be pretty well woven together. So it's a good narrative. The characters are likeable or love to hateable. Brilliant acting. Very atmospheric. The big question is it scary? Because at the end of the day, that's, the most important thing with a horror, and the short answer is, yeah, it's kind of creepy. As I think I mentioned in my first film discussion, in my review of the first film, it might have been scarier on the big screen, but even watching it on Netflix, on my laptop, it was still really eerie. There were jump scares, but a lot of it was also the unknown, when you just knew there was something lurking around the corner, and I think that that's always so suspenseful. But there are also some things that are revealed in this as the narrative progresses that were kind of shocking and unexpected and very well delivered. The timing of the information that was revealed, I thought, was spot on. It didn't give away anything, at least as far as I could see. It didn't give the game away too quickly. We learned little tidbits of information at a pretty steady pace, rather than either giving us no nuggets or giving us them all far too early, which a lot of horror films tend to do. But this one I actually thought was done very well. It is definitely a significant improvement on the first film. The first film was an interesting idea with a fairly average execution. This second film enhances that idea and delivers it pretty exceptionally. It is creepy, it is eerie, it's atmospheric, the music is great, the acting is great, visually it is stunning. I think we had the perfect blend of, brightly lit rooms and dark, dimly lit environments. A lot of horror films tend to think, certainly lower budget horror films tend to think, if you turn the lights off, it's going to be scary, and that's all you need. But actually, sometimes you can have a room that's brightly lit, but when the film expertly crafts this sense of the unknown, that can be significantly more scary, and I think the film gets that balance just right. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. As I said, a few little things with the narrative here and there felt a little bit loose, but actually I found it to be really moving and even a little bit emotional at one point. Really enjoyed it. So pleased that it is much better than the first film, because I genuinely came away from the first film thinking, how have you gone on for I think it's 5 films now? I just didn't understand. But now I do. Now I do. Really, really looking forward to the third film. And I just hope the quality is sustained, if not even improved upon, as I work towards the most recent film. Chapter 2 is definitely pretty good.